You know what a credit score is, right? You've probably had to look yours up online or needed information about it to buy a house or a new car. But have you heard of a social credit score or ranking? And no, this has nothing to do with the now defunct political movement in this country that once upon a time formed governments in BC and Alberta. I'm talking about a ranking system, a score, that is based on your behavior as a citizen. This could include your financial transactions, your traffic tickets, and even your online activity and social media behavior. This is, of course, the plan in Justin Trudeau's favorite basic dictatorship of China. The plan is for the Chinese to implement a social credit ranking system for all citizens by 2020 in order to gauge each individual's trustworthiness. Currently, Chinese tech companies are running a voluntary pilot program before the government steps in to make it mandatory. One of these companies is the mega conglomerate Alibaba Group, founded by Chinese billionaire and friend of Justin Trudeau, Jack Ma. As you may know, the Chinese regime already heavily restricts internet and social media access to its Chinese citizens, choosing instead to create state-run alternatives to names so familiar to most of us in the rest of the world. Instead of YouTube, they have Youku Tudu. Instead of Twitter, there's Weibo.com, and their version of Yelp is something called Yang Ping. These are all heavily monitored by the regime. Standard practice in dictatorships, basic or otherwise. And I know what you're thinking. Is that really so different than what Google, Facebook, and other tech giants already do in the West? After all, many of our daily activities are already monitored by these companies. From everything we buy online to the places we visit tracked by the GPS on our smartphones, who our friends are via our social media networks, how many hours we spend online or playing video games, how many hours we spend anywhere really, and even how fit and active we are thanks to health apps, what we buy based on the retail outlets we pursue online. It goes on, and I could stand here for an hour telling you about it. But what China wants to do with all this data and information is give its citizens a negative or a positive rating for each behavior or activity, and then, using an algorithm, reduce it all down to one single number, the score. All with the rules as to what is designated as positive and negative behavior stipulated by the Chinese regime. And in typical authoritarian fashion, each Chinese citizen will be given a citizen score, and it will be made public for everyone else to see. Li Lianying, a technology director for Alibaba's pilot program, told Wired magazine's UK site, quote, "Someone who plays video games for 10 hours a day, for example, would be considered an idle person." And someone who frequently buys diapers would be considered as probably a parent, who on balance is more likely to have a sense of responsibility, unquote. What they fail to mention is that anyone critical of the regime would be severely impacted by this rating system. And I suspect this will be the ultimate tool to quash any democratic movement in China, and of course to quash dissidents like Falun Gong practitioners or House Christians. The social credit score is all the creepiness of Google tracking everywhere we go and Amazon's customer tracking system, all with grave Orwellian implications. And is it so far-fetched to believe that something similar like to this, maybe even unbeknownst to the average citizen, is coming to the West in 10, 15, maybe 20 years? I mean, tech companies have already come under increasing pressure in Europe, for instance, to monitor the content and remove so-called hate speech from its sites. The EU proposed a swath of new measures in September telling social media companies they can expect heavy penalties if they don't remove hateful posts fast enough. These same tech companies, by the way, in a desperate rush to get into the massive Chinese marketplace, have basically ceded many privacy considerations and, frankly, intellectual property rights as well to the Chinese state. This is an issue the Trump administration will be pushing back on hard as he visits China this week. But who is to say that should our governments in the West fall to the pressures of increased surveillance and security under the guise of the threat of terror, or perhaps heck some watered down version of this social credit score, that they won't ask these tech companies to hand over the data they have on us? And God knows what they would use it for. But if China is an early indicator, it's an awfully scary thought. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson. Thanks a lot for watching. You know, I don't think the mainstream media covers China in the way that they need to. They are a threat, and I'll make sure to expose them at every opportunity possible. So make sure you click subscribe on Rebel Canada's YouTube page.